Let me pull up the story. We actually have the story from USA Today. It's from December. Elon Musk says there aren't enough people. Birth rate could threaten human civilization. And I think what people don't realize is that the only reason we have the level of technology we do is due to the specialties of human career, human jobs. Yeah. So let's go back in time. We're all living in caves. Human beings, it was possible. It was possible for a human being to have the summation of human knowledge in their brain. It was possible because we knew so little. As time went on, we began to learn more and more, and it came to the point where, way back when, you could be a jack of all trades, master of all, because the only jobs were hunter and gatherer.
That's master of both.
Yeah.
Master of two.
Don't forget shaman.
But you were let's say you were in your 30s, so you are spiritually, physically, mentally at your peak, and you're like, I am the best human there is, because we didn't know much. But eventually got to the point where we discovered mining. We used animal labor. Eventually, one person says, I've dedicated my whole life to learning how to tame these beasts. And some other guy said, I only learned how to grow these crops. All of a sudden, now the summation of human knowledge splits. And it's only due to the fact there are more people able to support each other. The more people we have, the more specialty jobs there are. I watched this great TED Talk. Guy made a toaster from scratch. I love referencing this. He could not do it. Plastic was impossible for him to make. He had to, quote unquote, mine it by digging up waste and then melting it. All in all, he made the toaster. It worked for about 20 seconds before frying out. And he said, it's amazing how this toaster costs $10 at Walmart, but a single person struggles to make it.
Yeah.
There's a book, I think it's by, Lydia, help me if you know, it's No One Knows How to Make a Pizza.
Isn't that by Julie?
Julie?
Yeah,
well, I mean, no one outside of Chicago knows how to make a pizza.
It's a casserole.
But
not a real pizza,
how dare you?
The idea is that all of the elements of a pizza come from so many different places.
That's why we have Conquest, big part of it.
Right. I started thinking about this in terms of, to simplify the whole discussion, think about a meal like pad thai. The amount, an American pad thai, sugars, fats, oils, the rice noodles, the meats, if you're going to put squid in it, how all of these things come from all over the world, or maybe even chicken tikka masala. To us, it's like you go to the store and you're like $15 and they hand you the bowl. But all these ingredients come from regions all around the planet, especially in winter, where the chickens might come from the north, the tomatoes come from the south. The more people we have, the more unique things we can create, like spaceships.
Yes. So
That's right. I think about this a lot when people try to tell, like hippie dippies in LA would always try to tell you about the natural diet that they're on. And you're like, yeah, what's the natural diet? And whatever it was, they were describing you describing a way of eating to you that no human being who lived in nature could have ever accomplished, and certainly not in winter.
Right.
Like what? Well, we evolved only to eat like
tempeh,
kale. Exactly.
Well,
I think the issue is, I think overpopulation is an issue mostly in density. And I had this conversation with Michael Malice because I think that you got to get to the nuance of things. Often these arguments don't explore the deeper issues. And I said, I think overpopulation is a problem. You've got dead zones in the Gulf. You've got garbage patches. You've got the windshield phenomenon. Bug populations are in decline. And all of these things seem to be tied to, pollution, to which Michael Malice responded, yeah, but that's an issue of density in cities. And I'm like, I'll absolutely accept that because I think that's the root of it. And I'm willing to say, you know what? Perhaps the solution is people shouldn't live so close together in concrete blocks that smell like sour milk.
That's right. But it's also, there are so many problems with cities in terms of our politics and pollution. But there's a bigger issue here. The better point you're making, in my opinion, is that as more and more humans are born, more and more complexity is added to humanity. And that complexity actually drives things like innovation. So yes, you get a spaceship, but you also get like super wheat. Like Alex Barlow is the name of the guy who invented
Norman Borlaug.
Norman Borlaug. Thank you, Norman Borlaug. The reason that we have more people now and we can eat, unlike what they predicted in the 70s, is because we innovated. Because now there was a need for something that didn't need to exist before that. So yes, the more people you add to the world, the more complexity is added to the world, the more problems are added to the world, and the more potential solutions are added to the world.
For instance,
colonize space, yes?
Yeah, and Pestiolopsis, there's a mushroom that'll break down plastic and turn it into sugar, which you can actually eat. It's called Pestiolopsis microspora. And if enough people know about that, we can recover like what Boyan Slat's doing in the Pacific with the garbage patch. He's actually recovering it. Break it down and eat it. You can alloy it with it. You can turn it into chemicals and things.
I got one real quick point. We did an interview with Ben Shapiro, and Ian really shined in his moment because Ben mentioned on a lecture that these charts and predictions about climate change never consider mitigation factors, to which Ian enlightened Ben on carbon capture graphene production.
Yeah, an adaptive technology that will eventually, what you can do is you deposit carbon dioxide onto a palladium copper alloy, and then at some point we're going to be withdrawing so much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and producing graphene, this new building material, that will actually be competing with trees. And if we don't do it right and start now and start organizing, we're going to overcompensate and start starving the trees of carbon dioxide. So we're going to eventually
Ian's
work
view of it is more of a global cooling perspective, because people don't consider the new technology that comes out that could actually threaten the inverse, which is graphene is this wonder technology that Ian never shuts up about.
Thank you.
And, I got him a little vial for Christmas the year before last. But production requires carbon capture. And that means we might start mining carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to make graphene, which is it's like a super material.
Yeah.
It can be it can be manipulated in many ways. It's like a superconductor,
supercapacitor. It's a conductor. It's like a touchscreen wallpaper. You can make it, or you can make clothing that's like a touchscreen computer. So batteries, wires.
I'll put it this way.
Sounds like hell. I don't want to wear that at all.
It's pure carbon. It's pure carbon. It's organic.
In 10 years, the conversation on climate change may be totally inverted to these graphene companies are cooling the planet.
Well, we've seen it before, because the narrative was initially that the planet was cooling, and then it was that the planet was getting hotter, and then it's just that we have climate change, and so it can go in either direction.
It's why you can... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, didn't they tell people to drive their cars as much as they could back in the day, like in the 70s?
You know what they'll say now, too? The libs and the alarmists will say, oh, the global cooling thing, that was just a brief media phenomenon. No scientific institutes ever really pushed that. I have half a chapter of my book just devoted to outlining every major scientific institute that was pushing this stuff. They pushed it for years, and now they've completely memory holed it because it's inconvenient. So, of course, it's going to happen again. Of course, they're going to go in the other direction.
Conservatives love post-apocalyptic stories, like we love Walking Dead, and I say we because I count myself among the people who loves things like The Walking Dead. But the truth is, my worldview informs me that it isn't possible. Not only that the zombie aspect of the zombie apocalypse isn't possible, but the entire idea of the complete collapse of human civilization is impossible, because we are humans and we innovate. Because if there really was a zombie apocalypse, I would be the god king of zombie extermination, and I would be looking up to Elon Musk, who would be killing trillions of zombies somehow. Like, we are a highly, highly adaptive species, and when a need presents itself, we find ways to meet that need.
Elon did make a flamethrower.
Oh, I love it.
Maybe he knows something we don't.
About melting zombies.
I discovered that same flamethrower is terrific for melting Harry's and Gillette razors.
Was that the Elon flamethrower?
It was.
Yeah.
Of course, Jeremy Boring was going to use the Boring
course.
flamethrower in his video.
Yeah, so I look, my view on climate change is I have no problem when, the establishment or mainstream narrative is that we're burning lots of fuels, it's resulting in a lot of carbon, it's warming the planet. I say, okay, all of that follows as far as I can tell with logic. But I think Ben is right about mitigation factors.
And also, if you want to talk more about the heating up of the planet, it looks like there's evidence that we're still in an ice age, and that what happened 13,000 years ago is a comet shattered over North America and peppered the glacial continent, caused a global flood. But we're still in the ice age. We just prematurely melted a bunch of the ice off. So we're going to continue to melt the rest of the ice and warm.
So that sounds terrible.
That's out of
I want
Utah
things to get
State.
cooler.
I think it's interesting because when people talk about overpopulation, it's almost as if at the societal level, what we are in the West is that unbelievably wealthy couple with no children and who happen to be debating whether or not they can afford one. It's just an unbelievable failure of optimism, ultimately. Mm-hmm. It's funny, I was at a bar after I graduated college with my father, and he was going around asking young people, are you optimistic? And they would all answer yes. And he'd say, do you want to have children? Oh, no, I couldn't have children. I could never have kids. And that stuck with me because people like to conceive of themselves as optimistic. They like to say, I have an imagination, but then they're not interested in investing in the future that way. And not only that, but they will actually, because it's okay, if you're not married, if you're not in that position yet, but they will shame other people for having children and being optimistic and wanting to bring life into the world. And that's a very ugly thing.
So my question is, if Elon Musk is the one guy on the other side of this, what's the motivation of people like, if Bill Gates is wrong, if all of these billionaires are wrong, why do they want less people?
There was a great comment that Charlie Kirk made the other day, and everyone made fun of him for it, and it was so smart. He said that tall buildings turn people into libs, and Media Matters made fun of him, and he said we need to develop horizontally more than we develop vertically. And everyone made fun of him, except he's completely right. Going back to the Tower of Babel into the present, there was a line that Chesterton observed. He said, when you're in the heights of a building, of a really tall building, people look like insects. Everything seems really, really small. When you're down in the valleys looking up at great things, when you're on your knees praying, looking up, only then can you raise your eyes to heaven. Only then can you raise your eyes to hope. But when you're at the top of that building, you just feel like God, and you're going to act like God, or what you think God is. I think that's what happened to Gates and to all these other lunatics who are so anti-human.
Well, and it's funny because the left will, the left has this hyper fixation on media critique, and I think it's good to critique media, but they'll take the most insignificant elements of a property and argue that it's influencing human behaviors in ways far more profound than I think a reasonable person would acknowledge. But then when you look at architecture, which surrounds us at all times, they act as if it's ridiculous to even insinuate more beautiful architecture creates a more beautiful culture or results in better attitudes.
I hear what you're saying, Michael, but I guess my question would still be, even if they think they're God, why less people? I mean, certainly if you were God, you'd want more.
Because they actually do see people as an impediment to nature, and they see nature as being supreme. So you'll actually read these people say things like, Elon Musk is going to go to Mars, and he'll just pollute it the way we polluted the Earth.
With people.
Well, who cares? Well, he's going to go mine an asteroid, the beautiful, natural, pristine asteroid. It's that the asteroid has zero value if there are no people observing it. How dare you say that you're saying that people are supreme. Well, I'm actually saying that God is supreme and that God made people, and yes, people are supreme to nature.
Real quick, just because I want to lose this point. Have you guys ever seen or read Watchmen? Watchmen.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I've not read it.
No?
No, I don't.
I
think, but was it a movie a long time ago?
Not
that
about
long.
10 years ago.
But the graphic novel is
10,
considered like the better form. But there's an element to the story where Dr. Manhattan, who is the one being with godlike powers, but he's like, I am not a god. I can only see my own past and present, or my own past and future. He leaves Earth to go to Mars. He's tired of humanity, and he makes this big machine, like clock-like. And then there's this young woman he was previously in a relationship with who wants to talk to him. He brings her to Mars, and he says, look at Mars. It has existed this way for eons with not a single human or life. Would you say to me that this planet would somehow be better with a shopping mall or parking lots? And then what it concludes with is, he says to her, you continually demand I see the world your way, but you refuse to see the world my way. And so she lets him, using his powers, see her entire life, basically from start to finish the way he sees the world. But in that moment, he sees her past. And in her past, this woman's mother was almost raped by a man. And then she went back to him later and conceived this daughter. And Dr. Manhattan says, seemingly impossible, a woman who had every reason to hate this man chose to love a man she should have hated. And after all of the billions of years and the energy all coming together, the only thing that exists is you. I was wrong. Miracles do exist. It's you. You've convinced me I'll come back to Earth with you. And so thinking about that line, brilliant writing. Who was that?
Alan Moore?
Alan Moore, who wrote that. Man, that guy's amazing. But I thought about that, and I'm just like, each individual human is so insanely unique in the billions of years it took to create one person. Yeah. And that person will never exist again, no matter how similar or, they may be to another person. Without people, it's a rock.
That's right.
Well, I actually beg to differ. This is something called the Blood Falls in Antarctica, and you'll want to pull this up. As the glaciers have been melting and fresh water is pouring into the ocean, we're like, oh, it's going to create dead zones. All of a sudden, this blood-red water rivers comes pouring out of Antarctica. No one knows what it is. So it turns out it's iron.
It's ferrous
What
algae.
it's doing is it's fertilizing the ocean. It's something called iron fertilization. When you introduce iron oxide into the ocean, it grows plankton, which then allows food for fish. And then you see a fish boom. So the Earth looks like it's preparing for us a flood, a freshwater flood, by fertilizing ahead of time. We're not alone here as humans.
No, but we're the only thing of value here.
The fish don't matter without us.
That's
correct.
correct.
But we can't
Fish
eat
only
without
matter
the fish.
I think they
Of
matter.
course,
I think
we
we matter the
sense.
most.
We exist in nature, of course. So we have we're symbiotic in a sense with nature. But nature was given to us by God. The fish has no concept of the fish's. There's no existential crisis for a fish. Anything that we think about a fish only we think. The fish doesn't think it.
But the fear is that if the ocean were to flood freshwater, we'll lose our fish population and starve. There'll be giant, and it looks like
Right, but-
the Earth is protecting us against.
But,
that.
but that doesn't change Jeremy or Michael's perspective. I would view it sort of from a more secular perspective. You know, you can say we're gifted nature by God. I would look at it like the various forms of life effectively form a foundation for what humanity is creating.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean to say that I think humans are the superior, in this context, better than any other form of life, just that we're the most adaptable and smartest and more prone to survival, which from a secular perspective, the strongest survive and everything else functions as sort of support.
Even
for
from
what
a
we are.
secular perspective, you'd have to say we're the only being on the planet that has a moral code of any kind. So in some sense, you could say, well, we're the most evil because we violate our moral code, and that's true. A lion eating a gazelle isn't evil. It's just a lion. So we both conceive of the concept of good and of the concept of evil.
That's
all of that lives
I
in
wonder,
humanity.
Do we see animals prey after they kill prey?
Pray, P-R-A-Y or P-R-E-Y?
Humans often
Pray before a meal.
well, they'll pray before a meal, but it also
after a
stems
kill,
back
yeah.
to after killing,
That's right.
giving thanks to
Yeah.
what they have taken away, sort of acknowledging that they take to, you know,
Right.
they're receiving something else's life.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a case I haven't heard of animals recognizing the suffering and the pain of some other animal that they have claimed their energy to themselves. I just look at it this way: for the entirety of life on the planet, you have this constant battle between evolution, or you know, whatever your view is. If a lion is trying to chase a gazelle and it's too slow, it starves. The gazelle becomes faster, so only the fastest lions make it, and that's, you know, natural selection. But then humans come along and all of a sudden have a new ability, adaptation, through intelligence, through tool making, and now nothing can compete with us. This means that of everything on the planet, we are the ones able to leave the planet. We are in complete control of the planet. We have dominated the planet in every way, and it's not a moral judgment on the value of life at all. It's just a mathematical equation.
Well, and it's a great responsibility, too, because if we abuse our stewardship of the planet and of all the creatures, then that's, I think, intrinsically wrong, and that would also be very bad for us. So it entails a lot of responsibility. But to this point here of really humans are kind of what it's all about on Earth, we don't prosecute the lion when the lion eats the gazelle. It would be absurd to do that, and that's why they're not open to these sort of this transcendent moral order.
Different question. If someone owned a gazelle and a lion jumped in and ate the gazelle and then fled, would we go after that lion, track it down, and kill it?
Probably, if he were going to come back and eat another one.
I don't think so. I actually think that if someone had a ranch in, you know, the savannah, and they had gazelle and a lion broke in, ate the gazelle and left, they'd be like,
I'd go kill that lion.
I don't.
If I had other gazelles.
Knowles has
when
a
you
very
look at-
angry, wicked soul. So
Yeah. When you look at ranchers, for example, in Montana, who have a problem where, wolves, who've been reintroduced into the population, start eating their livestock, they have to defend their livestock. They defend their livestock because of the word live. Like, right, the more important life isn't the life of the stock, it's the life of the stockholder.
But will
that is, so they're defending themselves. When, we get mad when Westerners go over and kill lions in Africa, but like the local tribes are pretty happy about it because they have to live with those lions.
But
so
my question is, do we hunt down those wolves, or do we create preventative measures, or do we seek retribution?
Right. I'm not trying to get vengeance on the wolf,
Right.
but
Not
I am
Moby
trying to
Dick.
solve the problem.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I
The
I
bowels
just
of hell.
well, the reason I bring this up is because in the instance where a human kills a human, we hunt that person to the ends of the earth
That's right.
to lock them up, or in many circumstances, depending on the severity of the crime, put them to death. I'm not convinced we do that to the same degree with animals.
no, I would kill the last panda bear on Earth to save the most reprehensible human on Earth, even though there are 7 billion other humans
That's
on
a
Earth.
great point.
Totally.
Why? Because the life of any human is superior to the life of the entire species of panda. Now, does that mean that I don't think we have a moral obligation to be good stewards of the earth, or that I think we don't have a moral obligation to look after the panda? I'm not heartless. I'm not Matt Walsh. I don't mean the panda harm, but I am saying that, Dennis Prager has been asking this question for 30 years now. Every year he asks, if your pet dog were drowning in the same river current where a total stranger is drowning, which one would you save? And he says 30 years ago, everyone said the stranger. And today, the majority of everyone says their pet dog.
Is
That's
that
a
mental
great
illness?
question.
Really?
Is that good or is it mental illness?
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.